Hello and welcome to JSB Talks Digital, the podcast for marketers, digital transformation champions, and those of you bringing your skills into the digital age. I'm Joanne Sweeney-Burke and this podcast is brought to you by Digital Training Institute. In this episode, number 111, I'm talking from startup to scaling up, how to build your business in the digital age. In social media news, Workplace by Facebook introduces profiles, Snapchat bins Snap Cash, and Facebook Watch Party goes mainstream. I interview Jamie White, founder of Leading Social and creator of the Start Summit. In Shoutouts, essential digital infrastructure for startups, Ask JSB, in JSB's column, My Startup to Scaling Up Story, and find out what social media tool saved my working week.
Social media news.
Turn workplaces into communities, says Facebook in an update introducing profiles for Workplace. In setting down its rationale for profiles in a business tool, Facebook quotes a stat that states 45% of decision makers believe a company-wide people search is a must-have business tool. So what's new in Workplace? Users will now see personalised profiles for deeper connections between colleagues. They'll be able to celebrate their colleagues and teammates and call out birthdays and work anniversaries. It also includes a new directory search to find anyone in the organisation. More personalised profiles are also encouraged, not just a colleague's name and where they sit, but what they do at work and what they like to do outside of work as well. So those of you who say Facebook is personal might just need to rethink that. Snapchat is to shut down mobile payment service Snap Cash on August 30th. The discovery was made by TechCrunch, who say that since launching in 2014, Snapcash has faced stiff competition from bigger cash transfer vendors such as Google Pay, PayPal and Apple Pay. The feature has been available to Snapchat users using both Android and iOS in the United States who have a debit card and who are over 18. Responding to a media query from TechCrunch, Snapchat said, Snap Cash was our first product created in partnership with another company called Square. We're thankful for all the Snapchatters who used Snap Cash for the last 4 years and also for Square's partnership. Facebook has officially launched Watch Party worldwide. Watch Party allows Facebook groups to watch videos together with all of the viewers tuned in to the same spot in the video. So what is Watch Party really? Well, it's a way for people to watch videos on Facebook together and in real time. Once a watch party is started, participants can watch videos live or recorded and interact with one another around them in the same moment. Commenting, Facebook says, we've been focused on building new ways to bring people together around video to create connections and ignite conversations. Watch Party is the next step in bringing this vision to life.
Interview.
In this episode, I interview Jamie White. Jamie is an award-winning entrepreneur, winning Ireland's Best Young Entrepreneur in Dublin in both 2014 and 2015. He's built up and sold numerous businesses, namely collegetimes.com and teentimes.com, two fast-growing youth websites that collectively reached over 100 million millennials weekly. He now works with brands worldwide on their social media marketing through his company Leading Social. He hosts numerous events in the concerts and conferences space and shares his business journey and lessons he's learned along the way through consulting, public speaking and social media. In this interview, I speak to Jamie about his latest venture, the Start Summit, which takes place in Dublin on September 15th.
JSB Talks Digital.
Jamie, you are very welcome to JSB Talks Digital. I should have had you on ages ago.
Joanne, I am so very happy. I love that. What a nice welcome. Thank you very much for having me. I'm thrilled to chat to you.
So today's show is all about starting your own business and being an entrepreneur. I often describe myself as the accidental entrepreneur, but it's all about you today. Let's talk about your own backstory.
Okay, good. So shall I get started from the very, very start for myself? Or
Well, wherever you want to pick up the story, just put yourself into context and how entrepreneurial you've been. Let's share it with the listeners.
Do you know, I'll jump in then for where I'm at right now, because I'm at a really interesting point. I'm 31. I have, I don't know if I should be ashamed to say or proud to say, but I've never actually really worked in another organization other than one I've built up myself. I've done everything from running an events business to running an online publishing business to running several marketing agencies. And for where I'm at right now, it's a really, really interesting space, because I have a social media agency at the moment, Leading Social. They're doing really well. We've just introduced a really strong managing director to the role. He's kind of taken over from myself. And what that's allowed me to do is kind of take a little bit of time to really think for myself in terms of what I want to do, how I'm going to kind of progress and move forward. And I suppose after the journey that I'm happy to jump into loads more detail in if you like, but it's just such a nice space to be able to take a breather after kind of literally being involved in kind of different bits of business for 15 consecutive years, to take a bit of a breather and go, okay, what next? What am I going to do? How can I capitalize on all the experience I've had to date? So that's where I'm at. And it's a really kind of exciting, special place.
I've so much respect for you putting in an MD into your own company so you can take a break. I mean, that thought would never cross my mind. So I guess that's how entrepreneurial and how your brain works. Was there any element of fear factor in doing that?
Yeah, do you know what? There's a funny thing. Like for me, you know, you may start off in business yourself, and I got some really good advice, which said that as you're growing, hire in on your weaknesses, and in effect turn your weaknesses into strengths as you progress. And as you progress, take a little step back. Now that's a fantastic, I think, bit of advice to follow. The only thing is, there comes a time then when your business is made up of loads of individuals that have individual kind of niche areas of expertise, and each of them is much, much better than you at that given area of expertise. And so that was the kind of about a year ago, I came to a point where, I looked into our business, and what was fantastic is there was just these really strong specialists in all these areas. But the only thing I realized then at that point was that probably somebody would be doing a better job than me for where the business was. So I'd love to say it was like a really, really well thought out decision, but it was actually just following that same principle of, I actually felt, okay, I was great at getting this started. And I think a lot of entrepreneurial types are great at getting things started. But as things then progress, it's a very different skill set to get something started than to grow from a certain point as well. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I'm talking today about from startup to scaling up. And that crossroads is so difficult. I mean, I'm at that crossroads myself where I'm trying to scale myself and not necessarily putting me front and center. So I'm trading time for hours. This brings us nicely on to your current project, and it's called the Start Summit.
Yeah, so as much as I'm kind of taking time out for myself, I suppose when you've got a little bit of time, it's hard to stay still, and I've certainly found that. And I thought, okay, well, what am I going to do with myself? And I was reflecting back on kind of the early stages of my kind of business career. I made some really, really dreadfully simple mistakes, and I think a lot of people when they're starting off make all these mistakes they make all the easy mistakes the hard way, and so I thought there was a really nice opportunity to create an event, ideally speaking, the event that I wish was there for me when I was starting off, to help, I suppose, limit those mistakes and help guide entrepreneurial types at that kind of infancy stage. And because I think that's a really it's a really kind of vulnerable point for a lot of entrepreneurs, where it is make or break. And if they don't get the right advice, they'll sink. But if they do get the right advice, it can dramatically speed up their entrepreneurial journey. So I was thinking to myself, what could I do that would be of really good benefit? And what was there a need for? And I know there's a lot of events in this kind of space, but I felt that there was still something missing in that kind of niche space. So that's exactly what I'm up to with the Start Summit.
So people who will attend, will they already be in business? Might they be considering a product or a service launch? Or is it for both?
So it's targeted at the type of people that have a business idea but don't have a clue how to realize it. And that will be, I imagine, a portion of the attendees. The other kind of bulk attendees are those that have started an idea and not quite realized all that's involved. And they've started, they're in the thick of things, and they're realizing, whoa, there's a lot more to this than I first anticipated. And that's where I feel that kind of key place is where you can have really dramatic positive impact. So the event is kind of quite simply built out, and it's on a Saturday. A lot of these events are more normally on weekdays, but I wanted it to be on a Saturday because I think those attendees are working nonstop Monday to Friday, can't afford a day off. So the first thing is that. The second is it's accessible, because I think it'll appeal to a lot of people well outside of Dublin. So in terms of getting to it, I wanted it bang in the centre of the city, so it was easily accessible. It's concentrated, as in it's one day. I think some of these events, they go on for 2 and some even 3 days. And I think, again, that's a lot of time to be taking off from your normal day-to-day work. So I wanted to really concentrate things and give people as much impact and benefit as I could in as small a time frame. And then the final part is that it's intimate. We've limited it to 500 attendees because a lot of these events can be quite overwhelming. And there's a lot to them. So I just wanted to make sure that we focused in on kind of quality over quantity in all areas and really make sure that anybody coming to the day gets huge benefit from it. Now, in terms of coming to the event, it starts at 9 o'clock. Sorry, I feel this is awful. I'm like hijacking your show and talking nonstop about my event. I hope that's okay.
Absolutely. The floor is yours. Take it.
Well, I just, look, it's a passion project. And for me, I'm really excited about it because I just feel it's lovely to be setting something up that you genuinely, I suppose, you really feel, or you know that somebody's going to come to this. It is actually going to be really going to be of real benefit to them. And I think when you catch somebody at the right point, you can have a really dramatic effect. So yeah, that's why I'm so excited about it. But the shape of the event is pretty simple in that you come in at 9 o'clock. We've organised a kind of a complimentary breakfast offering together then with time with exhibitors. What we've done with exhibitors is we limited the exhibitors to 20 and we brainstormed and we felt that there was 20 industries or 20 support groups that you had to work with in order to get your business moving. And that's everything from a bank to an accountancy firm to a tax consultant to a website company to a PR agency. So I gave exclusivity to each of those sectors and was able to then go to a number of kind of competitors in each of those spaces and say, who's going to give our attendees the best offering? So we've got some really fantastic offerings there on the day for attendees. Then at 10 o'clock, we start our talks. So we've got a blend of talks in the form of keynotes, workshops, and panel discussions. And so our panel discussions are very broad, covering, before you get started, what you need to know, and then the challenges that you'll inevitably face, and then how to get money in and grow. I wanted to keep those really open because I think everybody has kind of different stories that they can lean on and share, different kind of hacks that they have for getting money in or growing. And so I wanted to keep them very, very open. But then in the kind of the workshop space, I wanted to have very kind of fundamental learning. So everything from how to build your own confidence and mindset for entrepreneurial success, right the way through to when you're building out your accounts and preparing for tax, what you need to know. So the one thing was to kind of approach all the talks on a very fundamental basis so that I suppose they answer the questions that maybe perhaps you're sometimes a little bit too embarrassed to ask yourself, but you actually really, really do need to know. Does that make sense?
And you know what? Often when, we're watching TV or consuming radio or reading trade mags or newspapers, you know, business success sometimes comes with lots of zeros at the end. I mean, only in the past week we've seen that Apple is now valued at $1 trillion, the
Trillion.
first company ever. And sometimes, and I'm a small business owner, sometimes you feel that perhaps you're not successful. So I think that getting a room full of self starters together on one day will also create a very positive dynamic. And I think that's important because sometimes the small business story isn't one that's told often enough.
But like I love I got a breakdown of stats that 9 out of 10 startups fail in their first year, and then out of the one of those that progresses to the following year, 9 out of those 10 fail in their second year. So for me, just actually surviving in business is success. But yeah, you don't hear that, and in not hearing that, you actually don't acknowledge or appreciate your own success a lot of the time. And so actually just surviving in business is success. And I think for me, probably one of the most fundamental changes that happened for me in business was when I started socializing with a lot of other entrepreneurial types and sharing thoughts, sharing the kind of journey that we'd gone through. And what was amazing, I suppose, what was quite strengthening was realizing, oh, you go through this too. Oh, you've had that too. And realizing that, realizing first that a lot of the things that I thought were exceptional in my case and negative in my case weren't actually. They were just normal teething pains that everybody goes through. I felt that was very strengthening. And that's something, again, I was really, really conscious of building in a lot of networking into this event because I feel, well, I'm a big believer in that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with most. And I think in business, it's so important to know other people in business that are going through similar journeys to yourself, just to bounce ideas off and just to kind of, I suppose, weather the storm together, if that makes sense. I'm sure it's the exact same for yourself, is it?
Oh, absolutely. And I totally agree that having a group of like-minded, supportive entrepreneurs is so important. Many of the people that I would have went to college with went on and many are in the same jobs for the past 18 years. And, I've always worked in communications, but self-employed 10 years. And it's very difficult for an employed person to actually understand the world of a self-employed person. And I'm always very cautious not to complain because, they're looking at you and I know they're thinking, well, you chose this route, but it's really refreshing and like you opening up to like-minded entrepreneurs who think big because you have to think big. If you go in thinking that you're going to fail, you're probably going to with that mindset. Do you think business has changed, Jamie, since you started out all those years ago? How is it different for you now?
I think obviously the kind of the business environment, it's always changing. But I think the thing that you're trying to get to grips with is yourself, because when you start off, you are that little bit naive, and you do jump into things that little bit quicker. Whereas as things progress and you start to learn some of those really easy lessons the really hard way, you become that little bit slower. You become that little bit cautious, and sometimes you might jump into things as quickly as perhaps you would have previously. So for me, the environment is obviously changing, but I just think the actual personal journey is so interesting. Like, if I go back to that point that you were touching on there, where you were talking about, we were talking about obviously the benefits of linking in with other and building friendships together with other people that are following the same entrepreneurial path. The thing is about following an entrepreneurial path is that it's so unbelievably lonely for the kind of same reasons that you said earlier. Like, most people, it's hard to relate to your family because a lot of them will go into other types of jobs. It's hard to relate to your friends because a lot of them will go into other paths. And you find yourself quite lonely, and so as a result of that, you have to really work on yourself. So obviously building the network is of huge value, But then as you progress as well, taking a huge amount of time just to reflect on the various lessons you've learned along the way and how you could kind of better deal with things as you progress then going forward. So for me, as much as the business environment changes all the time, I just think it's so important for you, I suppose, to glean as much as you can from your own journey and to capitalize on those lessons that you're learning all the time.
Well, you're giving a kickstart to the business community in Ireland, and I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Where can people find out more, and when are tickets going on sale?
So I have set it up on www.thestartsummit.com, and so you can find it online or through my own social channels, which are just all at Jamie White. Now, what I do for any event is I always kind of have the sites live as I'm working on them and building them out, because I just think it's interesting. People love to follow, and I kind of have a couple of close followers that are just fantastic for helping me kind of build things out as we progress. But on site at the moment, the tickets are 50% off, so they're €50. And then when we launch on August 15th, they double, so they go up to €100, and they'll stay at that price then until September 15th, the launch date. Sorry, the date of the event itself. So no, it's exciting. It's very, very cool to be, like, I've been planning this event now for the guts of a year and a half, 2 years. So I just can't believe we're actually about to launch it next week. Very, very cool.
Almost at the start line for the Start Summit.
Exactly. Yeah. And we get to see you there yourself as well, which is going to be very exciting.
And thank you so much for the invitation. I'm looking forward to it and stepping back into the shoes of my early days. I think it's very important for us all to remind ourselves of how it started, why it started, and maybe I'll give myself a clap in the back and realise how far I've come to. But Jamie White, a pleasure to have you on the podcast, and no doubt I will catch you in person at the Start Summit, because I will be collecting some interviews for another podcast.
Brilliant. Well, listen, Joanne, just thank you so much for the opportunity. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sorry if I didn't cover kind of any points enough, but by all means, if anybody is listening on and they want to kind of hear more, if they have any other questions, feel free to link in on social media. It's only a pleasure, and I'd actually really, really like to share as much as I can. So don't hesitate to get in touch.
Okay, well, Jimmy offered, and I suggest that you take him up on his offer, because I can tell you he will respond. Jamie White from Leading Social and founder and creator of the Start Summit. Thank you for joining me on JSB Talks Digital.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Shoutouts.
In this part of the show, I give shout-outs to brands, organisations or individuals whose work online is remarkable and worth talking about. In this episode, I'm recommending 3 vital pieces of digital infrastructure in order to help you scale your business.
1.
Last week, I received a phone book in the post. Now, I don't use a phone book, and by the looks of things, not many people do, because it shrunk since the 90s. The new phone book is in fact a mobile responsive website. If you're not visible online, then let me tell you, your business doesn't exist in the eyes of your consumer. Don't swap a website for a social networking site, especially Facebook. Your first investment should be your own domain and your own hosted website.
2.
Conversations happen on social media, conversions happen on website. In order to get those conversations started, it's really important that you set up and join and are active on social networks where your ideal customers are. So, for example, Twitter and LinkedIn are 2 very important social networks for me as I'm targeting B2B.
3.
If you really want to scale your business, you're going to have to automate your marketing and build out a customer relationship management tool. One of my favorites is ActiveCampaign, which holds all the data of my customers, and it also allows me to connect and engage with them through email marketing. I've also connected my invoicing and account system to my CRM. And trust me, this has saved me loads of time in my efforts to scale up my business.
Ask JSB.
In this week's Ask JSB, Louise asks via a DM on Twitter about the fear of setting up a business and how to overcome it. This is a great question, Louise, and often entrepreneurs don't really admit to having the fear. Some people have a fear of public speaking or jumping out of an aeroplane, but the fear of actually making the leap and setting up your own business and even growing it is something very real. So how did I overcome my fear of setting up my own business? Well, I'm a practical and a pragmatic person, and I guess I wrote down the pros and cons. But more than that, I went with my gut. I'm also a very instinctive person. And when I knew the time was right, which is 10 years ago, this October, I felt that I should, and in fact, I did set up my own business. Another thing to consider is, do you know the topic or the product or the service that you're going to sell? It's really important that you're passionate about it and that you have all the information to hand. So Louise, I hope I answered your question, and best of luck to you at whatever stage your business is at. If you have a digital marketing or social media question, don't forget you can have it answered on the show by using the hashtag AskJSB on Twitter or Instagram. You can also leave me a voicemail with your question at digitaltraininginstitute.ie/AskJSB.
JSB's column.
In today's JSB's column, I share my startup to scaling up story as I look back on 10 years in business. When Jamie reached out to me to speak at the Start Summit, I began to reflect on the last decade of going it alone. So if somebody said to me in October 2008, everything that would have happened up until today, would I really have pursued business? The answer, I'm going to be honest, is probably not. It's been a really rocky and bumpy and difficult road, but at this stage in my life and in my career, I would say I'm probably unemployable. I've been through too much to go back to a Monday to Friday 9 to 5. So come my 10th year in business this October, I am going to write an epic blog post about that journey, warts and all. But in preparation for that, I'm giving you, my loyal listeners, some exclusive insights. So what prompted my decision to go self-employed? I was earning €90,000 a year, which was about €5,000 a month after tax. And I was in a job where I was working about 70 hours. I felt I was unable to impress my boss. He wasn't happy. He was getting me to do 3 different jobs in 3 different companies. And just one Friday, I remember going to his office and saying, you know, this isn't working out. I've been here 6 months. I've brought in new business. We've launched a new company, but you're asking me to work in 3 different businesses. I can't do all of those things really, really well. And when I gave him the ultimatum, he clearly wasn't happy. And out of my mouth came those words, I resign, and off I went. I've never resigned from a job before where I didn't have a job to go to. I always left a job having gone through interview after interview and really having a job and having that safety net. And remember, at that stage, my daughter Sophie was probably about 8 years old and I was newly married, so I definitely could not afford to give up that salary. However, I felt the time was right for me. I just had that gut instinct. Now remember, I said to you it was October 2008. Do you remember what happened that month? Well, if you look through the archives and if you even Google it, you will discover that Ireland went into recession. So my brave move of giving up a job suddenly turned into a really stupid move. And I can tell you, I got the fear big time. Around the same time, my husband lost his job. So we had turned into a household and a family with 2 incomes into one having 0 and living off our savings. Recession Armageddon is how I describe those probably 7 or 8 years, but in actual fact, it was probably a whole decade of going through the rough and trying to build. I then discovered, as a newly launched entrepreneur, that I was pregnant with my second child. And of course, we all know now that Bobby Burke is 8 years old. So I also had to cope with that. And in fact, I got satellite broadband into my house 2 weeks before Bobby was born because I had to continue working as a new mother. And I have a confession to make. He was 24 hours old. My phone rang. I saw the number. I knew who was at the other end, and it was potential business. I took the call. I made the pitch. I never got the business, but that's what you have to do when you are facing all the responsibilities that you have being self-employed. But I would say to you, and those of you listening who've been on that journey, that the challenges often are outweighed by the opportunities. A savvy business person will spot a good opportunity, and you know that if you work hard and if it pays off, it may pay off big. And I just trusted in myself. I had to learn business. I had to learn the ropes. I made lots of mistakes. I failed, but I always got back up. I think perseverance is one of the great characteristics of great entrepreneurs. Jamie gave you the stats in the interview. 1 out of 10 will only survive the first year. That one, then only 1 will survive in the next round. It's really, really difficult. But you can be the exception and you can break all of those stats by persevering. Another little thing that I did, and I think this was central to where I am now in business, is that I upskilled and I took on more academic and professional courses. I studied social media, I practiced it, I did a master's in digital marketing. My accountant told me that I couldn't afford to spend 10 grand on it, and I said I can't afford not to. And I think I was right, because running Digital Training Institute in the digital age, where there's a 22% digital skills gap right across Europe, I have stepped in, and that investment will and has paid off already. I talk about the comeback and the comeback of falling and pulling myself back up by my own bootlaces, and that's something that I'll talk a bit more about when it comes to October, so you're going to have to stay tuned for that. Building a team, and Jamie spoke a lot about hiring people that are better than you. That is so true. I had team members that didn't work out also. I give lots of people opportunities, and by virtue of them working with me, they got the experience and the reference, and they're now developing their own careers. I think my attitude is very important, being humble when I need to be humble, being realistic when you need to be realistic, but also having that can-do attitude and being willing to work hard. So where I am now, obviously I've launched Public Sector Marketing Pros, the Public Sector Digital Marketing Summit, the Diploma in Digital Communications for Public Sector, and Digital Training Institute continues to grow. In the future, I want to work 4 days a week, spend more time with Bobby, running races and winning gold medals for not coming first. And just always being committed, but never being afraid to ask for help. And I think what Jamie's doing with the Start Summit is really, really important. And so if you're in business, if you want to scale up, if you need to pivot where you are, and I pivoted a few times, then make sure you do. That is my startup to scaling up story so far. But as I mentioned, in October, we're going to have a full one, warts and all. So I hope you'll stick around for that. If you want to discuss your digital or social media marketing strategy, or indeed if you are a public sector organisation, then make sure you get in touch. Drop me an email to joanne@digitaltraining.ie.
Social media tool of the week.
The social media tool that saved my working week this week is Loom. The company's tagline is, "Send a video, not 1,000 words." This free screen and video recording software allows you to brief team members or clients with how-to demonstrations. On their website, Loom explained that for every 10 seconds of video you record, it is equivalent to 81 seconds of typing. No more super long emails that take forever to write. Simply click Loom to record and start saving time. So for somebody who likes to be super productive, you can imagine my delight when I discovered Loom. It's also got a Chrome extension. It's literally one-click screen recording and the upload is instant too. So give it a go and find out more at useloom.com. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode number 111 of JSB Talks Digital. If you're a regular listener, I would love a review. Don't forget, we're now also on Google Podcasts, reaching more Android users. You can also subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Libsyn, Stitcher, or SoundCloud. I have everything discussed on today's show on my award-winning blog over at digitaltraining.ie, and I've also entered the 2018 Blog Awards, so hopefully we'll do well this year again. If you're interested in becoming a digital marketing pro and work in the public sector, check out my new diploma in digital communications for public sector at publicsectormarketingpros.com/diploma. The doors open on September 3rd. Before I speak to you again next week, make sure you get in touch on social with your burning social media questions. You can send me a tweet to Tweets by JSB, post a comment on our Facebook page, Digital Training Institute. You can also snap me to JSB Snaps or send me a boomerang to JSB Grams. I'm Joanne Sweeney Burke. This is JSB Talks Digital. Thanks for listening and I'll talk to you soon.
JSB Talks Digital.